Welcome to the 2016 legal presentation. I am Ronnie Ezell. I'm the Executive Director of the Alabama State Board of Prosthetists and Orthotists. Before we get started with this presentation, I would suggest this. You might want to take some notes because there will be a quiz after the presentation that you will need to take. So let's get started. The goals that we want to accomplish with this presentation is that we want to cover the 2016 rules and regulations and legislative updates. We're also going to talk about the Alabama State Board of Prosthetists and Orthotists mission, the purpose of the board, and what we do. Also, we're going to cover the continuing education requirements for each classification during this presentation. And lastly, we're going to cover the upcoming 2017 license renewals. During the 2016 legislative session, there was a bill that was introduced before the legislature. It was Senate Bill 306. Senate Bill 306 was sponsored by Senator Cam Ward and a good friend to the prosthetic and orthotic profession, Representative Ron Johnson. The Senate Bill 306, and this was a bill that was introduced also in 2015. It's referred to as the Municipal License Bill. If many of you all will recall, in 2015, it was the issue that if you were going to see patients, say in a remote location for maybe a one-time visit in a small town, the question arose, do you have to have a license, business license, for that one-time visit? So that's why the bill was introduced, to try to clarify and to try to really exempt that from the O&P profession. Not only is it O&P, but it's also the home medical equipment industry, hospice, and home health. And if you recall from that bill, is that it made it up to the Senate and House of Representatives the last day for a vote, but the bill never reached to the point of where it could be passed. It was not passed in 2015. So this same bill was introduced this past spring in the 2016 session. Senate Bill 306 during the 2016 session. What currently is happening is that you either have a municipal, a county, or a business license tax, a home health agency and hospice, as well as O&P. The tax could be due if you go to locations outside your headquarters or branch office. This is what Senate Bill 306, this is what it wanted to fix. Home care providers, including P&O, are currently required to purchase business and delivery license for making a single visit, again, a single visit to a patient's residence. Home care providers are not permitted to increase payment fees to cover the expenses of business, delivery license, as our primary payers are Medicare, Medicaid, etc., who establish a set fee schedule. For example, Medicare requires that equipment is delivered and patients instructed on use without additional delivery fee regardless of where and how far away the patient resides. It'll also try to fix home care providers are currently targeted by, quote, bounty hunters, auditors that seek to go back 5 years to assess a license fee plus interest and penalties that merely allege, without any specific dates, times, or locations, that the provider is subject to licensure in multiple municipalities. There are a number of home care companies that may be on the verge of bankruptcy because of unreasonable audits, and we have seen assessments of up to $250,000. The current business and delivery license requirements are restricting patients' access to the least costly and preferred type of health care, as qualified providers are limiting their service areas to avoid excessive requirements, assessments, and administrative burdens. Again, that bill went through the House of Representatives in 2016 and it passed. That bill went to the Alabama Senate and it passed. A major accomplishment by all those that participated in getting that bill passed. But if you'll remember, with any bill, after the legislature passes, the governor of Alabama has to sign the bill. So after that took place, that bill was taken to the governor's office. If you'll recall, we learned that there was a number of entities in the state that was wanting the governor to veto that bill. I asked many of you by emails and contacts to call the governor's office to let them know that we wanted that bill, the governor to pass that bill. When it was all said and done, the governor vetoed the bill. Now, you would assume that with such importance that a reason would have been given, but it was my understanding that the governor does not have to give a reason. He just vetoed the bill, therefore it was not to become law. So with all that being said, I believe that this coming session, which will start early 2017, that this bill will be introduced again. You need to keep this in the back of your minds. We need to be looking to try to get this bill passed. To my knowledge, I am not aware of any orthotic and prosthetic facility that has been audited or had an issue in reference to this type of legal matter. But that's not to say that it could happen. So let's keep that in mind going in to the early part of 2017 when the legislature starts. I want to talk to you about rules and regulations of the board and a change in a particular rule in 2016. Now, this will only apply to mastectomy fitters in the state. And let me first say this to all of you all. I really appreciate the services you provide to the patients you see. Very much appreciated. What you're looking at is a rule on mastectomy fitters. You'll see it's chapter 746-X-8. The board at its recent meeting proposed that the mastectomy fitter rule be amended. Currently, there are 3 requirements for licensure. High school diploma, GED, or college degree, successfully completing a mastectomy fitter course, and 500 hours of experience. The recently passed rule is that beginning January 1, 2017, for all applicants, and let me stress applicants, new applicants, not current licensees, new applicants, will have to either have a national certificate as a mastectomy fitter from the American Board of Certification, ABC, or the Board of Certification, BOC, effective January 1, 2017. So the board met again and they said, well, if we're going to now require they be nationally certified, do we really need to require points 1, 2, and 3? Because the individual who is nationally certified will have to admit this before they can be nationally certified. So currently a rule is being amended, and what the board has requested is that points 1, 2, and 3, education, fitter course, and hours of experience, to be deleted. but to be deleted beginning January 1, 2017. When the board makes a rule change, it has to go through a state process, on average around 6 months for it to go through. The board will be introducing this proposed amendment. It'll be out August the 1st. At that time, you all, anyone that wants to make a comment about this proposed change can do so. And there'll be information about how you can go about doing it. But you'll have 45 days for comments. Once that's completed, the board will meet again in the fall. And at that time, they're going to determine whether to adopt the rule, to make these changes, with or without changes, depending on the public comments, if any are received. If not, then what we're looking at is that beginning January 1, 2017, for mastectomy fitters, for all new applicants, they will have to be nationally certified by either ABC or BOC. And the points 1, 2, and 3 will have been deleted. Try not to be so confusing, but let me also say this. Between now and December the 31st, these are the requirements for licensure as a mastectomy fitter. Between now and December the 31st of 2016. You have to have a high school, GED, or college degree. You have to have completed a mastectomy fitter course. You would have had 500 hours of documented experience. That's through December 31st, 2016. I'd like to talk to you all about the purpose of the board. You've heard it from me in years past, but I think it's worth repeating, especially for possibly a number of new licensees that might be listening to me today. The state board's mission or purpose is that the legislature declares that in order to safeguard the health, safety, and welfare of the people of Alabama against the unauthorized, unqualified, and improper administrative of prosthetic and orthotic care, it's necessary to provide for the licensing and regulation of persons offering prosthetic and orthotic services to the public. Again, to provide for the licensing and regulations of persons offering prosthetic and orthotic services to the public. With that being said, it's also the purpose of the board to try to assist as much as we can the licensees in the state of Alabama and to provide information that's helpful to you all in your particular profession in O&P, whether it be a prosthetist, whether it be an orthotic fitter. What I want to talk with you next is that, and we're going to go by each classification. During 2016, the board, unfortunately, had to administer a number of administrative fines to licensees who did not complete their required continuing education or did not get their legal and ethics. If you're listening to me today, you shouldn't have a problem at least with legal. But there are other required hours each year for many other than just legal and ethics. And I want today to go through that to try to help you all in preventing the board sending you a letter that you had not received the required number of hours in order to get your 2017 license. Listen, you have to have a license in Alabama to practice. You've got to make a living and you got to support your family, so it's important that I try to help you all in providing the information you need so you can get the board the information so the board doesn't have to take any type of action to possibly prevent you having your license. We don't want to do that, but because of the law and because of the rules, oftentimes they have to be followed by the board. For every licensee, You're required to have 1 hour of legal training and 1 hour of ethics training each year. It's annual, it's every year. For prosthetists and orthotists, you all are on a 5-year cycle requirement for your license renewal. The way the rules state is this: when you are licensed by the board, when the 5th year comes, the board is going to ask you for your continuing education requirements. For single disciplines, if you're just a prosthetist or just an orthotist, you have to show the board 75 hours of continuing education. If you're a dual discipline, if you're a prosthetist and orthotist, you're going to have to show the board in 5 years from the time that you were first licensed, and 5 years henceforth, 100 hours of continuing education. As you will see, that no more than a third can be distance-based, and at least 50% must be taken in Alabama or be provided by a board-approved Alabama provider. The classification of pet orthos. Pet orthos is also on a 5-year cycle with the board. Like prosthetists and orthotists, is that 5 years after your license was approved, you ought to provide the board 55 hours of continuing education, of which no more than a third can be distance-based. We're now going to talk about the classifications that require annual continuing education. Prosthetists and or orthotist assistants. You all are required to earn 8 hours of continuing education each year. 2 hours are in legal and ethics, and 6 hours are in continuing education specific to the type of license you have, either prosthetist, orthotist, or both, as approved by the board. And you'll see that no more than a third of this education can be distance-based. Mastectomy fitters. You're required to earn 4 hours of continuing education yearly. 2 of those hours are in legal and ethics, and 2 of those hours are to be conducted by mastectomy product vendors, the Alabama Prosthetic and Orthotic Association, or other board-approved organizations. Therapeutic shoe fitters. You are required to earn 7 hours of continuing education each year. 2 hours in legal and ethics, 5 hours of education conducted by therapeutic shoe product vendors, the Alabama Prosthetic and Orthotic Association, ABC, BOC, or other board-approved organizations. Orthotic fitters. You are required to earn 10 hours of continuing education yearly. 2 of those hours are in legal and ethics, 8 hours of education conducted by orthotic fitter product vendors, the Alabama Prosthetic and Orthotic Association, ABC, BOC, other board-approved organizations. I'm bringing this up today in this presentation because I think it's important. You have so many various entities that you have to keep up with being licensed in the state of Alabama. You have to know the requirements that I'm giving you now. Many of you are nationally certified. You're having to keep up with your national certificate. You're having to check a number of things, and you're trying to remember which is which. So if I can ask you, just always remember, is the licensing board is an entity all to itself. When you hear from me license, you should also always know that that is the board of prosthetists and orthotists when you hear the term license. So with that being completed, we need to talk about this upcoming year, 2017, and renewing your license. We have two ways to renew your license. You need to remember that every license expires December the 31st of each year. The law says that you have a grace period that you can renew your license. That will be through January the 31st of each year. What I encourage you to do is that we will begin opening up license renewals October 1 of 2016. I would encourage you to start early with that, if you can. Go ahead and get your 2017 information into the board and renew your license. Two ways to renew your license for 2017. First is the traditional way, the way that you would open up the 2017 license renewal on your computer. You would print off 3 pages, you would write in the information, you would attach documentation such as your continuing ed, you would submit a license renewal fee, and you would mail it to me at the board. That continues. You'll still be able to do it if you prefer to do it that way. But we now, as you know, have online renewals. And I want to talk a little bit about online renewals to try to help you with that. The board has an agreement with an agency in Alabama. Their name is Alabama Interactive. They are the ones that work and has established the online renewal for the board. When you renew your license online, you're going through Alabama Interactive. You're paying Alabama Interactive to be able to renew your license online. Once that's done, then I will then review your renewal. And if you have completed all that was asked, then I will approve your license renewal. This is what you need to remember. When I approve your license, it will go back into the system, and you will receive an email from Alabama Interactive. Remember, Alabama Interactive, you will not receive an email from the Board of Prophetess and Orthodox on your online renewal license. It will be from Alabama Interactive. The email will go to the email address listed when you renewed your license. You need to remember that, because it could be for many of you all, you have an office manager that does the renewals for you all online, which means that your license is going to be sent to that person's email with your license. So remember that if you don't use your own email to renew your license. But the email you get from Alabama Interactive, it should have an attachment, and that attachment should be your 2017 license. If you receive more than one license, if your license, give an example of your license, Pet Orthos, and maybe you own an Alabama O&P facility, you should be receiving 2 licenses by email from Alabama Interactive. If you don't receive both licenses, you need to call the board immediately so I can contact them to straighten it out. You should receive every license that you applied for to renew if approved. We had some issues with that in 2016. That's why it's important. We're trying to clear that up and want you all to let me know if it still happens so we can continue to work on it. But remember that. Remember that for those that receive more than one license each year, to make sure that both licenses are attached when you receive an approval email from Alabama Interactive. on the questionnaire, there's a questionnaire page on the online renewal. Beginning 2017, even if you answer yes to any question on the questionnaire, even if you answer yes, you will now be able to complete your online renewal. It will not stop you from completing. You will be able to go through, complete the renewal. Alabama Interactive will send the board a flag that there has been a question with a yes answer, and then I will address it if it need be with the licensee, but it's still that you can complete your license online. This completes the video on my legal presentation. Again, thank you so much for listening to me, and be sure and contact the board if you have any questions as it relates to any issues that you might have. Please feel free to give me a call. Now, will I have a quick answer when you call? Maybe not, but I'll make every effort to get one for you. Oftentimes I have to ask for assistance with technical issues, with specific issues that really need to be referred to specialists on the board. And oftentimes I have to do that. But I will try to get back with you and give you an answer. So, good luck. Again, thank you for what you do to the patients of this state when it comes to orthotics and prosthetics, and I wish you the best.